Episode 17 of the Belleville Sens podcast is here. We're here for a good time, not a long time this week. Not a whole lot going on at this time of year, but Joel Vanderlaan and myself, David Foote, do have some things to update you on, and also a conversation with pretty much the only guy we didn't get to talk to in our exit interview series. Goaltender Kevin Mandolese will join us on the line after just getting back from Europe following a bit of a playoff run with the Allen Americans. We're also going to play the call of our season seat member winner. Gary Richardson won his season seats for the upcoming season as part of our renewal contest, so we'll play that call for you as well. We'll also get into the Calder Cup Finals, which are now decided and determined. So, yeah, not a lot of Belleville-centric stuff going on, but there is a fair amount to talk about this week. And, it's still been relatively busy.
Yeah, and the hockey calendar never goes quiet, really, around these parts. And like you mentioned, Calder Cup playoffs continue to go down, and renewals for season seat members, renewals for partners as well. So we've been busy keeping track with all that here at the office as well.
Yeah, it's the sales folks have been working hard. We've been working hard behind the scenes trying to get some stuff planned out and set for next season, which is only a couple months away. So, yeah, the work never continues, but there will be, or the work never stops, I should say. It always continues. But there will be some chance for some summer vacation, so to speak, for everybody here in the office in the coming weeks. Roster-wise, not a lot to talk about. The NHL draft is coming up at the end of the month. Pierre Dorion and his staff are looking at the prospects, and we spoke to Ryan Bonus, our general manager, in the last week or two, and he's told us they've got their eyes on our roster as well as free agency opens on July 1st. So still a lot to do for the hockey executives at this time of year.
Yeah, and it's a hectic time. We saw a big trade in the NHL yesterday. Like you mentioned, the draft season's getting up and ready to go with the NHL Draft Combine, and there's some touch points that have passed. June 1st was a day for the undrafted free agents to hold their rights. So like we've mentioned, the work never really stops for these hockey executives, and development camp's going to be around the corner. So but for us, it's good. It keeps us busy, keeps us active, and keeps the fans engaged as well.
Some exciting stuff planned here at CAA Arena for the upcoming season, which throughout the offseason we'll be able to tease a little bit, but we're going to stay silent on some stuff for now. Don't want to give it away too early. You mentioned that June 1st deadline for NHL clubs to, in this case specifically, the Senators to sign 3 of their prospects. Our friends over at Locked On Senators podcast had Pierre Dorion on last week as he's doing his kind of early summer media tour, if you will. And those guys, Ross and Brandon, broke the news that 3 Sens prospects would not be re-signed. I think their interview was like the day before that deadline. But now we know that since that June 1st deadline, 3 prospects will not be signing NHL deals with the Senators, including one who I know a lot of fans locally were hoping would ink a deal.
Yeah, Ben Roger, and he's a big right shot defenseman, played in Kingston, played here in minor hockey with the Quinte Red Devils from the Brighton area. So he's a guy that's going to re-enter the draft, and we wish him all the best of luck as he continues on in his professional career. He's out of junior eligibility, so we'll see where he lands. And like you mentioned, it's an NHL deal that he didn't receive. So he'll re-enter the draft, and he'll be open to talk to teams about American Hockey League deals as well.
Chandler Romeo and Carson Latimer, the other 2 players who will re-enter the draft at the end of the month. And I don't want to get ahead of myself or speak on behalf of the hockey operations staff here, because it's not what we do on the Belleville Sens podcast, but we like to speculate a little bit and ask some questions. And the one question that I've kind of had mulling around in my head a little bit, Ben Roger is a Quinte Red Devil graduate, so we want the best for him either way. And if he gets picked up by somebody else in the draft, good on him, fantastic opportunity. Should he not get picked up by somebody else in the draft, I've been wondering, and a couple of people have asked me, perhaps the odds on Ben Roger maybe signing an AHL deal with the Senators, and that would put him right here in Belleville. To me, it seems like a possibility. That said, he was a second-round pick when he went a few years back, and likely he does have a little bit of spotlight on him still from other clubs.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what what people are kind of looking at now, right? And we've seen it time and time again where guys, they get drafted by their NHL club and they sign an AHL deal with their affiliate later on, just because that's the way the cookie crumbles a little bit. So I think there's a lot of fans, there's a lot of local people that are hoping he stays here. I think for him himself, I know we talked to him when he was skating here at the end of the year after his major junior season ended with the Kingston Frontenacs, and he really liked it. He works out with Mitch Freeburn. He knows all the staff down there. David Bell was helping him out when he was with the Quinny Red Devils. And so there's definitely comfortability there. And he's a player that, hey, he's had some tough luck with injuries over the course of his career. COVID, he missed a whole year, right? So
so did the other two guys that they didn't sign, and I've heard some experts kind of say that missed year is kind of playing into that.
Yeah, and I think too, when you look at defensemen, it's a tough position to grow into, right? It's the toughest position, that in goaltending, to kind of get into the professional ranks. And I think people want instant results with some of these guys, and like we mentioned, missing a year, injuries, it takes time, and he's a guy that has all the potential in the world. He just kind of has to get into a rhythm here, and hopefully he does find himself a home pretty soon.
Not to mention the fact that as an organization, the Senators are pretty deep on the back end, right? Because some people might say, well, why put him back in the draft and wait to just sign him to an AHL deal? Well, two things. One, the contract would have had to be an NHL deal as of that June 1st deadline. The other thing is that there isn't a lot of room for a guy like Ben Roger right now. Even if we look at our roster from last year, a guy like Jonathan Aspro is a little bit in question just because of the point that he's getting to in his career. It's not a bad situation to be deep on defense, but that is the reality for this team, I think, moving forward.
Yeah, you look at the moves, right? Jacob Chikrin's going to play a whole year. Tyler Cleven's going to play a whole year now to add to the guys they already had. And we saw Jordan Donovan. He's not AHL eligible yet, but he's a guy that's pushing from the junior ranks. Max Gannett's established himself as a true pro now. So Dylan Hetherington's going to be back. You look down the lineup. Jacob Larson's a restricted free agent. So there's guys all around, like you mentioned. So you don't want to. I think teams too, right? You don't want to box guys in. You kind of want to see where the chips fall. And if he comes out of the draft unselected, then hey, he's a prime candidate to get an AHL deal.
You mentioned the free agency period, which begins on July 1st. You can get all of the updates and stay connected with the roster movement through the offseason by heading to BellevilleSens.com and clicking our 2023 offseason player tracker. But there's at least a dozen players who are either unrestricted or restricted free agents for the Senators this year, and again, about a dozen or so who are eligible to come back. So there's a lot of work still to be done on the roster front. Again, as we noted earlier, Carson Latimer, Ben Roger, Chandler Romeo were not signed as of the June 1st contract deadline. Yakov Novak, who was playing in Allen with our guest coming up shortly, Kevin Mandolese, and the Americans, has to be signed by August 15th, so the Brass has a little bit more time to work on him. That's a left winger where we maybe could use a little bit of help up front. We would have to see. Some names we can tell you are under contract for next year. Tyler Boucher, who was with the Ottawa 67s last season. He's overage now, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so he will, in all likelihood, end up here in Belleville next season. Roby Yervente, Ridley Gregg, those two guys technically on the bubble, I think, based on how they've been developing. Zach Ostapchuk leaving the WHL at the end of the season here. Likely will be in Belleville next season. Angus Cruikshank, Phil Daou, Cole Reinhardt, likely will see them as well, though Crooker has obviously been garnering some attention, and Cole Reinhardt as well even got a mention from Pierre Dorion in his end-of-season interview with us back in the last game of the year, so you never know. Yuri Smykel will go to Ottawa camp, and there's been some question about where he's going to end up. That was the new European signing over the summer. Tyler Cleven, likely in Ottawa. Lassie Thompson will battle with Jacob Bernard Docker for a spot up there, and Pierre Dorion has now said on multiple occasions it's basically his spot to lose in Ottawa, so still lots to figure out, but a lot, I think, to be positive about when you look at some of those names that are at least under contract next year, whether they end up here or in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, there's a ton to like there. And you look at some of the guys pushing from junior, Tyler Boucher, a very high pick. Zach Stopchuk, we saw with Canada at the World Juniors, made a deep run with the Winnipeg Ice in the WHL playoffs. And then you supplement that with guys like Angus Crookshank and Ridley Gregg, and Yuri Smykel's a guy that's played a ton of pro hockey if he's up in Ottawa or down in Belleville. I think you look at Phil Daou, can he stay healthy? Because the first 10 games he played this season, man, he was a game changer. Mm-hmm. The way he was playing, the way he was skating, his shiftiness in the middle of the ice. You put that with a guy like Cole Reinhardt, who's pushing for the NHL now, and really consistent, plays a lot of games, and I think that's kind of been his calling card, is you know what you get with him. Coaches love him. David Bell really likes his game, his penalty killing ability. He gets a couple breakaways shorthanded every game, so. And then defense, you mentioned it earlier in the show. There's a lot of depth there. Jacob Bernard-Docker leaning towards playing in the NHL, but you still have guys like Lassie Thompson coming back. You look, Max Gannett was probably Belleville's best defenders on some nights this year, and just really honed into his game, felt comfortable at the pro level. And then the captain's back, and that's where it all starts. When Dylan Hetherington's on, this team can really start to jive, and I think that was the biggest thing in the second half of the year, especially when David Bell took over. Dylan Hetherington's game really got going. It was what we saw with him in his first season here in Belleville, and he really drives the bus on the back end, and when he's going, this team's winning a lot of games.
Yeah, absolutely. So lots to figure out on the roster front. Again, you can head to BellevilleSens.com for all the latest news, and our off-season player tracker is there as well. Defines all the different contracts and has some key dates too, including, as we mentioned, the NHL draft in Nashville, June 28th, 29th. Qualifying offers for restricted free agents are due by July 3rd. Unrestricted free agents can begin signing as of July 1st. And our next guest may get qualified by July 3rd. Kevin Mandolese will join us in just a second on the line here on the Belleville Sens podcast. But let's talk about Mando for just a bit. It was a wild ride of a year for him. He played in all three leagues of this development system in interesting order, to say the least, finishing in the ECHL with some much-needed playoff games. How would you kind of define the season for him? And we're going to ask him the same question.
Yeah, I think there's ups and downs, right? I think with a lot of players, young players, you see that, especially goalies. And I think for him, I think the biggest thing was playing the meaningful games. He's got a taste of the NHL now. He played some Calder Cup playoff games, asserted himself really well there, 914 save percentage. So I think in our interview, too, he mentioned the consistency is the big thing for him. Once he gets that going, once he gets kind of comfortable in his surroundings, right? He only played 17 games for the Belleville Senators last year, 17 the year before. He just hasn't played that many games, and I think that's the thing for him. If he can stay healthy, he can kind of get that consistency going, get comfortable with his environment. We've seen he's put up some tremendous results. Every time he goes to Laval, he shines, right, in his own backyard. With the Allen Americans, he kind of took that. He took the net and ran with that and got him to the second round of the playoffs. And his NHL debut, what else can you say? He stole the show again. So he's got the talent, and it's just kind of staying healthy and getting consistent, I think.
Goaltending was a story, to say the least, for the club from top to bottom, and one of the guys heavily involved in that joins us now on the Belleville Sens podcast. It's Sens goaltender Kevin Mandolese on episode 17. Thanks for taking some time, Mando. How you been?
I'm good. How about you guys?
Yeah, we're hanging in, plugging away, already looking forward to next season. And, we were following pretty closely with, your playoff run down there with the Allen Americans. Before we maybe get to the specifics of that, how would you kind of classify this season overall for yourself? It was kind of a unique and wild year for you.
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely up and down. But lots of learning and lots of exciting things that happened too. So I classify that as a lot of learning.
Yeah, up and down is right. You make a couple trips to Allen, you get up and play in the NHL as well, and obviously get to cross that off of your bucket list. Is this kind of how you expect your career to go at this stage? Just kind of trying to find your footing and find that consistency.
Yeah, I think consistency is huge, especially for a goalie. I think a lot of experience will help with that, but I think that was part of going back down and playing some games, playing meaningful games, and to eventually be able to be more consistent and also develop more.
You have a pretty even-keeled personality, Mando. How much does that kind of play into your success when you're going up and down throughout the course of a season?
Well, it's not always easy up and down, but at the end of the day, you can't control what's going to be happening, right? I think Justin Peters really helped me with that, and it's kind of just being the best in every league you can be, and trying to dominate, especially when you're sent down to the ECHL and kind of play with a chip on your shoulder. And I think it's always never take anything for granted. So just kind of come in and work hard every day and kind of redo that day in and day out, because that's the only thing that you can control pretty much. So that's all I try to do every day. And it's I think if you start thinking too far ahead or thinking in the past, I think that won't help you. So I think being even keel like that definitely helps.
You were able to get into some Calder Cup playoff games. How much does that help you too, just to get into those high pressure situations? You put up stellar numbers, 914 save percentage over the course of 9 of those games.
Yeah, it's definitely fun. I think playoffs is ultimately why you play hockey, right? It's you want to win, you want to go as far as you can, and I think those are the best games to play in. And I was happy I was able to play some playoff games, and it was just very fun. I think it's been a while. I think since I've played playoffs, and it kind of reminds you why you do that. And I was very happy and very fortunate to be able to have a longer season and be able to play more and develop in those games. And it was very fun. That's how I can put it.
Chatting with Sens goaltender Kevin Mandolese. What was the the caliber of play like in the Calder Cup playoffs? And did you feel that level kind of grew or got tougher as would be expected in a playoff series?
I think especially in that league, it's kind of you have to expect the unexpected.
Right.
And I think that just kind of went on as the playoff went. But it's good because you always have to be on guard and always have to be ready. And I think it's big as a goalie in any league to be ready for anything, especially on ice or off the ice, like with injuries and all that. Like we see every year, like there's so many call-ups and injuries and all that. So I think it kind of reflect on the ice sometimes too. So I think it was good as it went on, and it just got me even more kind of ready for stuff that I wouldn't expect to happen. And it was good because I was able to face a lot of shots and play a lot of games, and kind of you don't really have time to think when you play every second, third day. And especially with one game that got canceled during those playoffs, it made the schedule even more hectic. So it was good, and I think the level of play was surprised me. So especially against that big Idaho team, it was good.
That game that got canceled was due to the shooting at the mall there, not far from the team headquarters, really, in Allen. What was it like to kind of be down there and have to go through that? Obviously, something that you never really want to be a part of, but it seems to be kind of the reality down south of the border these days.
Yeah, it was definitely not what you were used to. It was kind of scary, but I think being around people that I think, well, sadly, it happens often. I think in the in the United States. I think being able to be with guys that kind of been through that kind of helped, but it was definitely scary. I think the community did a great job. Even the Idaho team did a little something for that. So it was nice to see everyone come together for that strategy. It was kind of crazy, and when you think about it, it's still kind of uneasy to think about seeing those innocent people and children lose their lives like that. So, but it was special to see to see the community come all together and support everyone through that, and see all the GoFundMe pages raise tons of money.
Yeah, and obviously we don't want the interview to take the negative turn, but that was a big story, obviously, and the team did a fantastic job in, as you say, helping the community kind of get through that. On a lighter note, from the Belleville side, a couple months now into the off-season. You're about a month or so now into yours. How have you been spending the time, and how have you been enjoying the early part of the off-season so far?
Yeah, well, as you said, I was in Europe for a bit, kind of winding down from the crazy year. It was a pretty fun trip. Now I just got back 2 days ago, so no, I'm just kind of taking the rest of the week kind of easy, kind of getting prepared for next week where I'll start working out, and I think it's just my time off was mostly spent in Europe, and now I'm getting ready to start all over again.
Yeah, you mentioned a nice European vacation. What are you kind of focused on from the on-ice part of the off-season? What do you want to kind of focus on after a successful year?
I think mainly off-ice will be my goal, kind of getting stronger, and mobility-wise, same thing, kind of being more mobile and stronger, so I can be healthy longer and hopefully always be able to be available for the team. I think that's the biggest part, and ultimately also like kind of just hit the ground running whenever camp starts. I think I can do a better job with that for the start of the season. When the season starts, well, I always feel like I'm in shape, and I can, start going start the year off well, and kind of keep rolling with that.
Kevin, you're a restricted free agent this year. Has that changed the way that your off-season is being planned, or how things have gone so far?
Not really. I think it's all that unknown. I just kind of, it's stuff that obviously comes with the job, right? So nothing really changes. Maybe my plans here and there on where I'll be working out and when I'll be going on the ice, maybe a bit, but ultimately, no. Like it's stuff that happens, and obviously, but nothing really changes on my end. I think I just want to make sure for next year I'll be able to play as many games as I can, and that's my main focus right now.
Well, we wish you the best of luck in getting ready for next season, wherever it may be. Hopefully we see you here in a Sens uniform again, though, obviously, as we continue on this episode of the Belleville Sens podcast. Thanks again, Mando. Appreciate the time, and, try to get some rest, eh?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys, and I'll definitely work on having some rest a bit.
Thanks again to Kevin Mandolese for his time, and we hope to see him in a Sens uniform, and we'll find out in about a month or so whether or not we will. Again, free agency opening July 1st. He is a restricted free agent, so the Senators have until July 3rd to offer him a qualifying offer before he potentially hits the open market. We are going to talk Calder Cup Finals in this episode of the Belleville Sens podcast. It is the oldest team in the American Hockey League, the Hershey Bears, against the youngest team in the American Hockey League, the expansion Coachella Valley Fireboards, the AHL affiliate of the Seattle Kraken. There are some familiar names to Belleville Sens fans taking part in the marquee series of the league, so we'll have that on the other side of the break. Before that, though, this week we awarded our winner of the season seat renewal contest. If you've been following along in recent weeks, we've been giving away weekly prizes to incentivize people to buy their season tickets or to renew them. The grand prize was a free season ticket package, or basically if you bought 2 season tickets, you would get both of them free. If you bought 6, you would have got all 6 of them free. Well, our winner is Gary Richardson, and his account executive, Evan Jeffrey, and I gave him a ring earlier on this week.
Hello?
Hi, is Gary there, please?
Speaking.
Hi, Gary. It's David Foote from the Belleville Senators. How are you?
Very good. Very good.
Good, thanks. I've got your account rep, Evan, here on the line as well. He's got some news for you.
Okay.
Yeah, Gary, got some good news for you. You are our lucky season ticket holder, and you've won your seats as part of our renewal contest.
Well, that's excellent.
Yeah,
congratulations.
For Linda and myself.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah.
Season of free hockey is not too bad, eh?
Yeah. Linda's kind of looking at me funny.
It's not a prank.
No, yeah, it's real. And you guys have been season ticket holders since the start, eh?
Yes.
Yeah, amazing. What keeps you coming back?
Nothing else to do on Saturday nights.
That's fair.
That's a good answer.
Right on.
No, it's been good hockey. It's just the rotation of players going in and out.
Right on. Well, congratulations again, and we'll see you around the rink soon.
Well, thank you very much, guys.
Gary Richardson, the winner of our season seat member grand prize. He'll be attending all the games at CAA Arena this season free of charge by winning our season seat member contest. And I sympathize with Gary a little bit about the players coming and going. I think everybody does, especially Joel, who has to keep the transaction list updated.
Yeah, it becomes quite a chore, especially when you use 53 players, but hey, that's life in the American Hockey League.
It is. The 2 teams that are the only teams remaining in the American Hockey League didn't have anywhere near as much roster fluctuation. Gee, I wonder if that played into their success. We'll discuss when we come back here shortly as we continue on episode 17 of the Belleville Sens podcast. The Calder Cup Final begins on Thursday night between the Hershey Bears and Coachella Valley Firebirds. We'll discuss in just a moment. Stay with us.
Get in the game. Start planning now for the next season of Belleville Senators hockey. The new Belleville Sens Business Elite program is a season seat membership just for business. Use tickets to treat your staff or attract new clients. Benefits include AHL TV game packages, exclusive member events, and more. All packages offer a VIP business experience like in-arena signage. More info on season seat memberships, flex packs, and the Business Elite program at BellevilleSens.com. Go, Sens, go!
One more segment to go on this truncated edition of the Belleville Sens podcast in the middle of the off-season for us. Still not quite off-season time for the Coachella Valley Firebirds and the Hershey Bears. They're getting set for Game 1 of the Calder Cup Final out in Palm Springs. It begins Thursday night. It is Wednesday afternoon when we are recording this, so the series may be on by the time you're listening, but we'll give you our thoughts anyway on how we think this one is going to shake down. It's 2 teams that Belleville Sens do not see a lot of. The Hershey Bears are only here they're only here once a year. We only go there to Chocolate Town once a year, but everybody who follows the American Hockey League knows the Hershey Bears, again, the oldest franchise in the league, perhaps one of the most iconic emblems because of that. It really has put the city of Hershey on the map, I think, outside of nothing big, just the theme park and the chocolate factory and everything else that they've got going for them there. Up against a team that is playing in their own arena for the first time. Didn't get into their rink until December, I think, almost. They were playing elsewhere until then. The Acrisure Arena has already been kind of called one of the crown jewels of arenas in the American Hockey League. Brand new building out in Palm Springs. They've had some incredible crowds, and likely that will continue as the Calder Cup Finals open in the Coachella Valley on Thursday evening.
Yeah, two teams that from the get-go have been amongst the top in the American Hockey League, and it's no surprise. You look at the rosters, and what I remember about the Hershey Bears is the game they played back here in the end of January, and Belleville was controlling the game, dominating the game. They were up 2-0 going to the third, and Hershey kind of flipped the script. They scored 4 unanswered in the third. They win the game 4-2, and you look at a team like that where they can kind of lull you to sleep a little bit for the first 2 periods and then, hey, bounce right on you, and they take that game. And some of the names, Ethan Frank, fastest skater in the American Hockey League, and Scarbosa, Dylan McElrath, and just go down the list on their club. And then the other side, too, with Coachella, some familiar names like you mentioned. You got Joey Decord and Ned, who might be the best goalie in the American Hockey League. Max McCormick leading the way too. Played here in Belleville as well. Tough customer, but kind of figuring it out now offensively in the American Hockey League as well. So it's going to be a battle. It's two teams that I think this is going to go the distance when you look at it and you look at the way they match up. Really good goaltending on both sides. Veterans, good rookies too. Good young players. So it's fascinating, and I know Patrick Williams, he's written a couple columns too about just how good this series is going to be for the American Hockey League as well.
Again, you can check back in our past episodes to hear our interview with Pat, where he basically predicted this would be the Calder Cup Final. The guy kind of knows what he's talking about. You mentioned Decord, McCormick. Ty Cartier, the rookie sensation, is from just down the 401 in Kingston. Made some headlines jumping into the Stanley Cup playoffs, scoring his first NHL goal, now trying to help the Firebirds to the Calder Cup Final. Shane Wright, another former Frontenac and exceptional player, literally, by definition, under Hockey Canada's exceptional player status. And then Chris Dreger, who was part of the Belleville goaltending stable in the inaugural season 17-18 and has been around a little bit since then, settles in to back up Joey Decord. So certainly sets up to be an exciting series, as any championship usually is. And if we look at these two teams' roads to the final, for the Hershey Bears, somewhat less impeded. Let's start with the fact that they didn't have to play in the first round because of the way that the Atlantic Division is set up. They got by Charlotte 3-1 in the second round. They swept the Hartford Wolfpack 3-0 in the third round. They did have to go 6 games with a very tough Rochester American squad in the Eastern Conference Final, and now here they are in the Calder Cup Final. Contrast that with the Firebirds, who had to win the best-of-3 series in the first round against Tucson. It took them 3 games, the distance. They won 2-1. In the second round, they had to go 5 games out of 5 against the Colorado Eagles, who are a very, very strong club. They had to go 5 out of 5 games in the Pacific Division Final against the number 1 team in the division, the Calgary Wranglers, and then they had to go 6 of 7 in the Western Conference Final against another really good team in the Milwaukee Admirals. How much do the Firebirds have left after a run like that is the question for me.
Well, that's the thing, right? They've played 6 more games than Hershey. So
it's a whole series.
Yeah, and these games, they're tough, right? They're you got to wonder how much they got left in the tank, but I think, too, you look at it and you look at the guys they've gotten back now. John Hayden came back from the Seattle Kraken. Ty Cartier is back now. They got 2 goalies that they can run out there. Chris Dreger's played exceptionally well at the NHL level. Joey Decord's carried the load so far, so I think they're prepared for this. They've gotten a bunch of guys back from junior as their seasons have ended as well. So I think when you look at the depth that they carry, they're prepared for this. But at the other end too, the Hershey Bears, like you mentioned, have kind of walked through the Calder Cup playoffs up until they ran into Rochester. So it's going to be fascinating to see if that kind of plays into the storylines as well. If the well-rested Hershey Bears can kind of jump on Coachella now with the added travel going coast to coast.
The one person we haven't mentioned on the Coachella Valley side of things that has just a little bit of experience in winning championships is the guy behind the bench. Dan Bilesma is their head coach. Took the Pittsburgh Penguins to Stanley Cup championship. That just having a guy like him behind your bench has got to make a world of difference, not to take anything away from Todd Nelson on the other side. Yeah,
and I think, too, when they kind of brought in this expansion franchise and they brought in Dan Bilesma, this is what they envisioned, right? The development of their players, the winning culture he was going to bring in there to Coachella. And I think you look at it, too, I think he's the kind of guy that's going to get interviewed for NHL coaching jobs again now just because of what he's done with Coachella and the way these prospects have developed. And Shane Wright's getting valuable time, like you mentioned, in the Calder Cup playoffs now. And you can't replace a winning culture with anything. And that's what he does. That's what he brings in. And they're going to pay dividends for it for a long time. And their club, too, a kickstart, but they made it deep in the NHL playoffs. And Ron Francis has done a tremendous job with that whole organization.
And should say Todd Nelson does have a Calder Cup title to his name with the Grand Rapids Griffins in 2016-17. So no slouches behind either bench, and that will certainly play into things. The last thing I wanted to kind of pick your brain on is the home ice advantage in this series. This might be one of the furthest series is in terms of distance, like Toronto, Texas a few years ago was pretty far away, but we're going Hershey, Pennsylvania, Palm Springs, California, two buildings that have seen excellent fan support over the course of the season. We know all about the Hershey Bears and their fans and what they bring. We don't know a lot about the fans out in Coachella Valley other than that they've been showing up in droves to the Acrisure Arena to support their team.
Yeah, and I think that's what it's all about, right? Is they've established their fan base now through this first year, and winning solves a lot of problems and solves a lot of questions, right? And the fans are coming out in droves, like you mentioned. They're going to get the first two cracks at home, then they'll go out east for three, and they'll have the last two at home as well. So for Coachella, I think you got to like that setup. You get to jump on it early, and you know that you have those two in the holster back at home if you can't finish it out in Hershey or vice versa. So, and you know those fans are going to be waiting for you, especially if it gets down to crunch time, Game 6, Game 7. So, and Hershey 3 straight there in the middle. The fans know that's the 3 games they're going to get. So they'll be there, 9,000 of them, ready to go with the nice weather.
Yeah, that is a nice note as well. The format, because of travel and the cost related to that, will be 2-3-2. They'll start in Coachella Valley. As Joel mentioned, they'll come back to Giant Center in Hershey for 3, and then they'll finish at Acrisure Arena for 2 more. Just of note, attendance this season, Hershey Bears, second in the American Hockey League, averaging 8,861. Coachella Valley in their inaugural season, they gave them 36 games here, but they started elsewhere, right?
They started in Seattle.
Yeah, but they had 7,478 fans on average in their opening season. So it's going to be loud, it's going to be entertaining, and we're really looking forward to watching the Calder Cup Final. If you have an AHL TV subscription, you should be, not the Team Pass, but the League Pass, you should be able to watch the Calder Cup Final. And I would imagine NHL Network, etc., will probably pick up some games. If they can. I know they do have TV capabilities out in Hershey. So, again, the Calder Cup Final begins on Thursday night in Palm Springs, and we'll have an update on the series on our next episode of the Belleville Sens podcast. We've got to way more in this show than I expected we would. So we'll wrap it up. Before we go, I do want to announce again or remind everybody that Belly's community crew will be out across the Bay of Quinte region at events all over the place throughout the course of the summer. Braden DeVries, who was not in the office when we did our Get to Know Your FO segment, is leading that group. We may have to get him on, maybe on the next episode, to discuss that role and what we can expect from Belly's summer crew. One thing we can tell you is that whenever you see Belly's summer crew out and about, make sure you go up and stop by the table, chat with Braden or whoever's working, and be sure to enter Belly's summer giveaway. Much like last season, there's a QR code available at our setup wherever we may be that day, and all you have to do is scan the QR code, enter your information, and you'll be entered to win a grand prize pack, which includes 2 full season tickets, 2 parking passes, $250 to the locker room store, and 2 signed mystery pucks as well. So a pretty good prize, and all you got to do is just scan that code when you see Belly's community crew out and about over the course of the summer. They've already been out. They will be out, as will a lot of people in Belleville this weekend. Bay of Quinte Pride taking place on the weekend coming up here on June the 10th is the Saturday. We'll have our float in the Pride Parade heading down to West Zwicks Park, and all the festivities at Zwicks begin around noon. So make sure to get out and support our community during Pride Month, and this event, Bay of Quinte Pride, just continues to grow. We're really looking forward to that event this weekend and to seeing everybody out there. Again, thanks to Kevin Mandolese for his time this week, and you for listening, and of course to Joel Vanderlaan for riding shotgun as he always does. Big plans for the weekend other than the Pride Parade?
Not too much. Maybe hit the links. I've been getting out golfing a little bit more. I got the itch from the office, so.
Yeah, the one day we went out, Joel's got the bug. Well, maybe we can facilitate that. We'll see what we can make happen. Whatever you do this weekend, make sure to enjoy it. Don't forget to rate and review the show. Subscribe wherever it is you're listening so you don't miss the next episode, and we'll talk to you next time on the Belleville Sens podcast.